welcome back to my channel and a new video. For today's video, I thought I would be talking about the books that I've read recently. Even though I've done reading vlogs on them, I thought I would do like kind of a wrap up. I'm not gonna do monthly wrap ups because that just puts a lot of pressure into reading X amount of books in a month, which just kind of stresses me out. I kind of have a lot going on in my life and I just honestly don't read many books in a month as of now, so I feel like it feels better for me to do like wrap-ups or recent reads once in a while rather than monthly wrap-ups, so I hope that's okay. I do kind of like monthly wrap-ups because I do like the organization of it. I would prefer that, but I just don't. It's just not gonna happen right now. So I'm gonna do recent reads videos or books I've read recently, so I hope that's okay. And I have a few books here to show you guys and talk about that I've read in the last couple of months. The first book that I have read is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This is one of his newer books, and once I saw this in the bookstore, I had no idea it was out, so lucky me that I was in that bookstore that day, because I had no idea that this book was coming, or I've never heard anyone talk about it. I just happened to see it there and it was Stephen King, so I bought it without even thinking about it. Usually his newest books, I don't know, I tend to judge them without even knowing anything because I tend to like his older books more, but I really enjoyed this one, and it's a magical, fantastical read. In this book we follow Charlie, who is a regular high school kid, and one day he's walking in the neighborhood and he hears a dog barking from a neighbor house, and this dog is barking like something is wrong. So Charlie happens to check it out, see what's going on, and happens to see his neighbor has fallen off a ladder and the dog is barking for help. So with no one else around, Charlie helps this old man and takes him to the hospital and helps him out. And this older man gets better and gets sent back home, and Charlie feels this sensation of taking care of him. He feels kind of responsible. He's the one who found him. He feels responsible to take care of him and his dog, because even though he made it, he's not doing so well after the accident. He was old and he fell off pretty hard off a ladder, so he's not doing really well. He can't really walk the dog anymore. He can't really take care of his house, so Charlie is helping him with that. So Charlie spends all of his time there when he's not in school, helping this old man and his dog and taking care of the house, doing chores, stuff like that. And they bond, they become close. When this old man dies, Charlie finds some secrets that this old man was hiding. He finds this old tape that he listens to, and in this tape there is a recording that this old man has done, and he is revealing some really big secrets about a portal to a whole new world. So he gets access to this portal and this whole new world, and you get to follow Charlie as he's on an adventure and on a mission. And it's just very fantastical and very magical, very unlikely Stephen King, to be honest. It didn't feel like a Stephen King book, and not in a bad way necessarily, but I don't think I've read like this type of fantasy with like a whole new world building and stuff in a Stephen King book before. So it was really refreshing and I really enjoyed it. It's a pretty big book, so it was slow at times, and it did take a time before you got into that fantasy element, because the majority of this book was the old man and Charlie bonding, and you know, he didn't die until kind of the end of the book, and then you got to follow Charlie on his magical adventures. So yeah, kind of a mundane book about relationships between neighbors that also had this fantastical element. So I really enjoyed this book, so if you've been hesitant to read it, I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're into fantasy. It was really good. The next book I read was If It Bleeds by Stephen King, and this is a collection of 4 short stories. So we have 4 stories in here, which means that the stories are going to be shorter and not as big or fantastical. But they could be, but it means that you don't really get to know the characters as you might have if it was a full story, you know what I mean? Because they're short stories and they're just not as long as Stephen King usually has with his characters and his worlds and his happenings. Many books by him has multiple stories in them, and I enjoy it. I think it has downsides and upsides. If you really like the story, it's kind of sad that it ends so suddenly, like you would have wanted more, but at the same time it's pretty cool because sometimes they're just the right length, and sometimes his bigger stories, longer stories like It or Under the Dome, could just be way too long and could have made it out just being shorter. So it's a good thing, I think. So the first story is called Mr. Harrison's Phone, and in that story we follow Mr. Harrison, who kind of lives, you know, by himself in a house, I think like far off somewhere, not really wanting people around him. And one day he meets Craig, who is a teenage boy, I believe, or a young boy, and he gets him to read for him, you know, read stories for him, and they kind of bond through that. Again, we have this like connection between an old man and a young boy. I don't know, there's just something with Stephen King and relationships like that. So he reads stories for him and they bond and they become friends, and Mr. Harrison usually buy lottery tickets for Craig to like thank him for coming and reading. And one day Craig wins money on a lottery ticket and he decides to buy Mr. Harrison a phone. You know, he's an old man, he hasn't really used a cell phone before, but Craig takes the time to learn him everything about it, and you know, like all of us, he becomes pretty obsessed with it. And you know, he's very grateful for it that he learned him about using an iPhone, like a smartphone. And this particular cell phone, Mr. Harrison's cell phone, is gonna have a very important role in the story because Mr. Harrison eventually dies, and Craig decides to put the phone with him in the casket as kind of like a, I don't know, he bought it for him, he feels like he should have it in his grave. And a little while later, Craig gets messages from this phone, from Mr. Harrison's phone, but he buried it with Mr. Harrison. So it's all kind of creepy. Not the scariest Stephen King story, but it's definitely like eerie, and he's trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Is someone pranking me, or is Mr. Harrison alive, or is it his ghost? It's just, you know, the cell phone just have a very main part of this story, and it was kind of cool. I kind of enjoyed it. It was a pretty short novel, obviously, but I kind of enjoyed it. The second story is called Life of Chuck, and I believe that was the shorter story, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna talk about that story because I didn't understand what that was. So if you want to know about the second story in this book, Life of Chuck, just look up someone else or look up on Goodreads, because I did not enjoy it. I didn't know what the meaning of that story was, and yeah, we basically followed a man named Chuck. That's what I know, and that's where I'm gonna end it. That's where I'm gonna leave it. The third story is called If It Bleeds Like This Book, and there we follow a middle school being blown up by a bomb, and they say it's terrorism. So that's what the book starts with. It starts with that happening, and then we follow in another perspective this detective Holly, who is trying to solve this problem and trying to find the person who did this, who was responsible for killing all of these kids and teachers. Actually, maybe Holly was a journalist or a detective, I don't remember, but she takes help from a detective at least, and together they are trying to figure out who this man is. And as they chase clues, Holly starts to kind of see a pattern in this person and see a pattern from a past case that she solved, which was about the outsider. So this story is kind of connected to the book The Outsider by Stephen King, which I've not yet read. I have bought it though, but I haven't yet read it. So in the story, she kind of connects this person to the outsider and says that she sees similar patterns with the outsider and this man. What's difficult though is that the outsider was a man who could shapeshift. He could change his appearance to look like someone else, which obviously is not going to make it easy to catch this person. And soon enough, Holly discovers that this person who blew up this school also can shapeshift. So sometimes he will look like something and another time he will look like someone else, which obviously again makes it really difficult to chase and hunt down this person because who's gonna believe her, you know? I thought it was a really good story. It was the longest story, so we really got to kind of know the characters and really follow on in this mystery. It was such a serious topic and series happening with the middle school, and then you get to see these people try to chase it down and kind of having this like fantasy element to it as well, because he can shapeshift. It was really eerie and really, I don't know how to explain it. I think it's spooky. I think it's eerie when people can change appearance. It really freaks me out. Just like look like other people. I don't know what about it, but I remember getting chills when I read it. Just really fucking creepy. And you get to follow as Holly eventually like confronts this person and being like, I know what you are, I know what you can do, like I'm on to you. It was a really fucking good story and I definitely recommend it. And the last novel of this book was called Rat. And in that story we follow a writer, a man who is a writer and he's kind of been struggling a bit with his writing a new book. It's been difficult, but all of a sudden he has new inspiration, new motivation, and idea for a new book that he wants to write. But in order to do that, he kind of feels like he needs to leave his family behind for a bit and go up the mountains or the woods, whatever, go far away and live in like an abandoned building, abandoned house, far off in the woods, whatever, to kind of just, you know, focus and concentrate. So he leaves his family for a little bit and drives his car up the mountains, up the woods, I don't remember, in the forest, to kind of live at peace there and try to get inspiration and try to start his new book. And there is a snowstorm coming and all of a sudden he gets snowed in and he can't leave. So he's kind of stuck there, which kind of he wanted to because he needs to be concentrated to write his book. But he's stuck there. He can't go buy food. He can't go buy medicine. He's just stuck there, which is obviously a problem. His wife told him to go home before it gets worse, but he just didn't listen and now he's stuck. And he kind of starts to feeling ill and kind of starts to feel bad. And but he can't go out to buy medicine, so he's just not really doing well, and he doesn't know if it's like his mind going crazy or if it's just like he's having a fever, whatever. He's not really sure. Then one evening he hears a knock on the door, and he opens it. There's no one there except a little rat that runs in the house. He tries to kill it, and he does, he thinks, and then goes to bed. Next morning, the rat is gone. He just left it there dead, but the rat is gone. So he thinks that it must have survived. And it did, because the next day it comes back and the rat talks to him. And this man is not really sure if it's happening for real or if it's just like delusional. He's going crazy. He's been alone there for a long time. He's not really sure, but the rat is talking to him and offers him a deal. So since this man is not feeling well, he's not been able to finish his book that he really wanted to. So the rat makes him a deal. Like, I can help you finish your book. I will make sure that it sells a lot, that it will be successful if one of your close one dies. And I don't know why this man does, but he agrees to this deal. I think he just doesn't really believe it. He thinks he's dreaming. He thinks he's delusional. So he says, yeah, sure. And the next thing he knows, it happens. One of his really close friends dies, and his wife too, I think. So he's obviously in a big mess, and he can't really understand what is happening and what the fuck was this real. Yeah, it's just a really fucking weird story. And then he comes home and he's confronting the rat again. It's as you hear, it's very unique and weird, but I thought it was mediocre. I thought it was kind of funny in a way. I don't know, weird in a good way, but also pretty fucked up. So yeah, that was this book. 4 pretty unique novellas, and some I liked better than others. The next book that I read is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This was a pure author buy. I bought it because it was Grady Hendrix. I've read some of his books and I've really enjoyed them. So I bought this without hesitation, without really knowing what it's about. Well, I think it's pretty clear what it's about, seeing the cover and reading the title. And we all do like a good horror book, so of course I bought it. In this book, we follow Louise, who lives in San Francisco with her daughter, Poppy, and she doesn't really have too close contact with her family. Her parents and her brother, they all live in Charleston, I believe. She doesn't really have contact with them, and she's doing her own thing in San Francisco. And one day she gets a phone call from her brother Mark, and immediately she thinks something is wrong because Mark just doesn't call her. They don't really talk on the phone, so obviously it's something going on when Mark is calling her, and it turns out that he's calling her to say that their parents died. Their parents died, and Louise is forced to fly out to Charleston with Mark to take care of the house, get it ready for sale. Like, what are we gonna keep, what are we gonna throw, just get it ready to get on the market. And also obviously plan the funeral and meet the family and, you know, all that stuff. But it's not going to be difficult because Louise and Mark does not get along. We have a lot of like family drama, a lot of family history that I'm not going to go into, but a lot of things that happened when they were young that you eventually found out why they kind of hate each other, and just a lot of family secrets that are coming up to the surface. But eventually they do get along and, you know, try to get this house on the market. But soon enough, they discover that the house is probably haunted and it's not going to be easy to sell. Their mother had a love for puppets, so the house, pretty much the entire house, is full with puppets. And slowly but surely, Louise is starting to think that something is going on, because all of a sudden the puppets are not where she last put them. They're gone. They have moved positions. It's just really creepy, and soon enough they discover that something is just not right. It's like a battle of figuring out who is haunting us and like what is actually going on. And you do have a lot of family secrets built up. Like, it's all connected. It's about past family secrets, family drama. So I did not like this book as much as I thought. I was pretty disappointed, maybe because I had so high expectations, but also 70% of this book was pure family drama that made me so fucking anxious, I'm not gonna lie. And then the rest, 30%, was cool horror freaky shit, you know. So I just did not really care for it, unfortunately, even though it was a fun read. The next book that I read was Different Seasons by Stephen King. This is also a collection of 4 short novellas, and I've been wanting to read this for a while, and this is the beautiful pastel thing collection. It's so beautiful. The first story in this book is Shawshank Redemption, and I wanted to read that story because I watched the movie. It's a pretty popular book that turned into a movie, and I've never read it before. I've only seen the movie, and I've seen it recently, so I wanted to read it. It is about a prison, Shawshank Prison, and how a man kind of changed the life of many, many people in this prison. It's set back in the time, and you follow through many, many years as this man comes in, and how he changes people's perspective on things and how he changes lives. And I don't know really what I can express how I feel about this story and how I can explain it in a fair way, because I can't. It kind of talks about like that we're all human beings, even though like they're in prison. We're all human beings and we all crave and need the same things, and we're all worth the same thing. It has beautiful friendships, beautiful relationships in here, but also very harsh scenes, because obviously it's not easy being in prison, and the prison guards, the people working at the prison, is not treating them well. It's just many ups and downs, but overall it was a beautiful story and a beautiful friendship story, an inspirational and hopeful story that I just can't talk about enough. And I don't want to say, like, I don't know what to say. I want to say one thing, and that's like, read it and watch the movie. The movie has Morgan Freeman in it, and it was really, really good. So definitely read it and watch the movie. Next story in this book was Apt Pupil, where we follow a young boy, teenage boy, who finds out that a former Nazi lives across the street. So he kind of nestles his way into his life, and they talk about things that happened during the World War II. This guy, old man, was a German soldier and did terrible things back in the day during World War II. So you get to hear stories that this old man is telling this young boy, and that's important. You know, knowledge is important, and it's important to know your history, but it doesn't end there. Like, this young boy has a weirdly and dangerously fascination about the Second World War, and he forces this old man to tell things that he doesn't want to tell, because this old man kind of has moved on. You know, he just, the past, he kind of just wants to live his life in peace in America, and he doesn't really want to bring up old stuff. But this boy forces him to do that. He forces him to talk about things he doesn't want to talk about. He forces him to put on his old German uniform, and it's just really fucking weird. The relationship between these two just takes off where I can't even explain it. Like, this young boy was a very smart, good student. Now his grades are dropping. He doesn't really care about anything else than hearing tales from this old man about the World War II, which is very odd, and I did not particularly like this story. I just thought it was weird, to be honest. I do understand that we need to know stuff that happened, but this was just not it. The third story in this book is called The Body, which was adapted into a movie that's called Stand By Me, which I haven't watched, but I read the book. And in this story, we follow 4 young boys who is out for a mission. They are going on a hunt, on a quest to find a dead body in the forest, because there has been someone missing that are presumed dead, and it's supposed to be like around a certain area. So these 4 boys go out one day to try to find this body. Why? I don't know, because they are young boys, and young boys just, I don't know what's going on in their minds. I guess they think it's cool to see a dead body. But it's not only about that. So we do have that aspect of it. They are going on a hunt, on a mission, but also all these 4 boys come from dysfunctional families, and we get to hear them talk about it with each other, and how they have had a difficult, you know, period growing up, and how they kind of connect through that. So it also have that beautiful friendship aspect and kind of this real and rawness to it, that, you know, life isn't perfect and our families isn't perfect, and we can connect through that. And, you know, they're telling each other some pretty shitty stuff, and, you know, it's just a pretty beautiful friendship story, as well as we have this like on a mission thing. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to see the movie in the future. The next book I read was Hell by Sean David Hutchinson. This was purely also an author by, because I've read a few books by Sean David Hutchinson, and I've really enjoyed them all, even though I knew this was going to be different, because I've never read a fantasy book by him. All of his books that I've read have been like contemporary, you know, about mental health stuff, and this was like that as well, but also with a twist, a fantasy twist. In this book we follow Virgil, who his parents are getting a divorce, so he moves with his father to a small southern town in Florida called Merritt. You know, it's one of those small towns where everyone knows each other, and if they don't know you, like, they know your parents, your grandparents, everyone has been to school together, and everyone knows everyone. You know, one of those small towns where you can't really keep a secret because everyone will find out. And, you know, Virgil is not happy about it. Obviously, he's gonna miss his friends back home and his boyfriend back home. He's just having a tough time right now. And just before the school year is about to start, Virgil is at a party, you know, drinking, and you get to read about Virgil coming back from the forest and laying down, being unconscious, and he claims that he's been attacked by a monster. He claims that a big claw scratched at his back and that a monster attacked him, and obviously no one believes him, and as a reader you don't really know yet either what attacked him. He just claims it was a monster. And since it's just a small town, everyone knows about this event, so when Virgil starts school, everyone keeps bullying him and talking about it and just making fun of him, so obviously he's not having an easy time at this new school. You know, he's trying to tell people that a monster attacked him, and his father is trying to make him see a psychologist because obviously something's not right. and it's just all very dramatic. I would say that the main part of this story is not, well, it is about that accident, but the main part of this book is like high school drama, boyfriends, girlfriends, friends, finding your place, partying. Like that's honestly the main part of this book. And then it has a little bit of a fantasy twist where Virgil is trying to find out what actually like happened to him that night, and he's doing that, you know, with his friends. They're trying to figure it out, and eventually he finds out some secrets and finds out that he's not alone in this and someone else was attacked and what actually was going on. So high school drama with a bit of a fantasy twist. It was fun, it was pretty fast paced, but definitely not anything special, and don't think that it's anything that I would ever reread, unfortunately. I don't know, like a fun 24-hour readathon book that will be fast, but I did not really care for it, not really care for the characters or their stories. So unfortunately, it was not what I expected, not what I hoped for Sean David Hutchinson. Even though like I knew it was a fantasy going into it, I just think I had too high expectations. But I also think that I might have outgrown this author because he writes, you know, young adult books, and I'm just not really interested anymore in reading about kids in high school. Like I could, but definitely not this. It just felt really, really boring to me. And the last book that I read recently is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Do I even really have to tell what this is about? No, probably not, but I'm gonna do it anyways. In this book, we follow 19-year-old Feyre, who lives with her family. They used to be rich, but now they're poor. So she lives with her father and 2 siblings, and none of the other really care to take care of them. So she is the one that like takes care of the family, who hunts food and, you know, earns money by that and gets them food so they don't starve to death. And one day she's out hunting and she spots this like really particular wolf that just seems really, you know, bigger and more beautiful than anyone else, and just like a weird creature, and she kills it and, you know, takes it home for her family to eat and then sell the fur to earn money to buy more food. And then a few days later, fairies come and take her because apparently the wolf that she killed was a fairy, a fae, and you're not allowed to do that. You know, she didn't know, but they take her, they kidnap her and take her into a land where fairies exist and faes are like ruling, I guess. So she gets taken to Spring Court. There's multiple different courts, but she's taken to Spring Court, and there she meets Tamlin and Lucian. And, you know, she's there against her will, obviously, but slowly but surely she's kind of starting to be okay with it. You know, she's not doing any chores. They're not, you know, doing anything to her. She just lives there. She's just like sentenced to live out her rest of her days there, I guess. And of course, like she falls in love with one of the faes. So it's kind of a love story also between Fairy and Tamlin. And, you know, there's threats going on and there's magic that is threatening to destroy the world. And it's just very, you know, fantasy-like that. So the main part, like, yes, you do have love, but this one is not particularly spicy or romantic. It's honestly mostly like fantasy. And then the rest of the story is better and more about romance, I would say, and just better overall. Yeah, I don't know, like a typical fantasy romance, I guess. I don't really know, like I like this series, but this first book is pretty boring. It gets better. I'm on the second book right now. I'm rereading this series. Already so much better. It gets better after this book. This book is pretty slow, pretty boring, but by the second book it's better already. So but yeah, I think most of you guys have read this series. It's so popular and just, yeah. I have mixed feelings about it. Yeah, that was the book that I've read recently. Please let me know if you read any of these or if you want to, and let me know your thoughts. I would love to chat about them with you guys. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in one of my next videos. Bye.